Most people don't realize this, but when it comes to men, respect is everything. It's not just a nice idea. It's the very oxygen they breathe in relationships. You can tell a man you love him 1,000 times, but if your tone, your words, or your energy shows that you don't respect who he is or what he stands for, he'll slowly disconnect. He might still stay physically present, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, he'll start checking out. See, love to a man often feels like respect. That's how he interprets it. That's how he internalizes it. When you speak to him in a way that honors who he is, his efforts, his leadership, even his flaws, something powerful happens. You begin to activate a part of him that wants to move mountains for you. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything he says or does. Not at all. But it's about how you express disagreement. It's about communicating in a way that says, I believe in you. I see what you're capable of, even when you don't. That kind of support lights a fire in a man. And when a woman taps into that, when she becomes the voice of belief in his life, when her words make him feel stronger, more grounded, more focused, he'll start associating that strength with her presence. And that is when the addiction begins. Not to manipulation, not to games, but to the way she makes him feel about himself. You want a man to be hooked? Speak to the best in him. Not the part that forgot to text you back, not the part that dropped the ball last week, but the part of him that's trying. Because most men walk around the world feeling like they're failing at something. And when they meet a woman who doesn't use their shortcomings against them, but instead sees through the noise and speaks to the warrior in them, that's rare. That's unforgettable. When you say things like, I love how you handled that, or I really respect how hard you work, those aren't just compliments, they're confirmations. You're confirming his identity. You're saying, I see you, you're not invisible, you matter. That kind of emotional communication creates a bond deeper than physical attraction. It's the difference between surface level connection and soul level connection. You start to become his safe space, his power source, his clarity in the chaos. And that's the shift. That's the shift from being just another woman in his life to being the woman in his life. Because the truth is, men don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with presence, with energy, with a voice that lifts them instead of crushing them. When you learn how to speak to a man's masculine core, not with fear or control, but with trust and belief, you don't have to chase him, he'll chase you. That's when he gets addicted, not to what you do, but to who you are when you speak to him like that. There's something magnetic about a woman who's not afraid to be vulnerable. But here's the key. It's not about being needy or falling apart emotionally. It's about having the strength to open your heart without trying to control the outcome. Vulnerability, when expressed with grace, is one of the most powerful ways to create emotional safety with a man. And emotional safety is what makes a man truly attach. You want to know how to make him addicted to you? Make him feel like he can finally breathe when he's around you. Not judged, not tested, not measured, just safe. Most men grow up learning how to protect, how to provide, how to problem solve. But very few are ever taught how to feel. And they carry that into their relationships. So when you come in with emotional awareness, with openness instead of accusation, with presence instead of pressure, you start to unlock a new part of him. You give him permission to soften, to share, to step into his own vulnerability too. And here's the truth. When you go first, when you show him it's safe, he will meet you there. Not always right away, but it happens. Now listen, vulnerability doesn't mean dumping all your emotions out at once. It's not about dramatic speeches or crying on command. It's about being real, saying things like, I missed you today, instead of pretending you didn't care, or that comment hurt my feelings, without turning it into a war. It's about being honest in a way that doesn't punish him, but invites him closer. And when you do that, when you share your truth without trying to manipulate the response, you create connection. You create trust. He starts to see you not just as someone attractive or exciting, but as someone safe. And in a world that constantly tells men to hide their truth, a woman who creates that kind of emotional freedom is irresistible. That's where the addiction starts to grow. Not in your body, not in your words, but in the way he feels when he's around you. He feels grounded. He feels seen. He feels at home. That's a feeling he won't get from every woman. And it's a feeling he'll keep coming back to because it's rare, it's healing, it's real. See, most people are too busy trying to protect themselves to really connect. But when you stop performing, when you stop trying to be what you think he wants and instead just be, he senses it. That honesty has a frequency. That realness pulls him in, and suddenly he doesn't want to go anywhere else. And we want someone who says he's going to go to any length to keep his word with me so that I would never be afraid to go anywhere else. Because your vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you unforgettable. That's the kind of connection that turns attraction into devotion. Most women don't even realize they're doing it. But the moment you start questioning a man in a way that feels like pressure, interrogation, or emotional demand, he shuts down. Not because he doesn't care, not because he wants to hurt you, but because in that moment, he doesn't feel empowered. He feels cornered. And here's what happens when a man feels cornered. He retreats, he avoids, and he begins to associate the relationship with stress, not safety. You want him addicted to your presence? You need to make sure the way you talk to him opens him up instead of shutting him down. And one of the fastest ways to do that is by asking empowering questions, not demanding ones. See, most people think communication is just about getting their point across. The truth is, real connection is built on how you make the other person feel when you're talking to them. When you ask questions like, why didn't you call me? Or what are we even doing? Those aren't actually questions. They're emotional statements disguised as questions. And men hear that tone, that underlying emotion, and their walls go up. Not because they're guilty, but because they feel accused. It puts them into defense mode. And now the conversation's not about connection, it's about survival. It's not about closeness. It's about protecting themselves from being wrong, from being judged, from being made to feel like they're failing. But when you flip that energy, when you ask questions that invite him into deeper connection, instead of backing him into a corner, you change everything. Instead of, why didn't you call me? Try, I was thinking about you today. How was your day? It's a small shift, but it's massive in its impact. You've just opened a door instead of creating a wall. You've offered presence instead of pressure. That one change can completely shift the tone of your relationship. Empowering questions are built on curiosity, not control. You're not trying to trap him. You're not trying to pull something out of him. You're creating space where he wants to show up more, where he wants to share more, because it feels good to do it with you. That's the secret most people miss. People don't open up when they're told to. They open up when it feels safe and rewarding to do so. And this doesn't mean avoiding hard conversations. It just means choosing the right approach. What do you need from me right now? Lands a lot differently than you never show up for me. One inspires solution, the other triggers shame. And when a man associates your words with possibility rather than punishment, with growth instead of guilt, he doesn't pull away, he leans in. He starts to see you as a partner in his life, not a critic of it. That's when he stops responding out of obligation and starts engaging out of desire. You ever notice how it's not just what someone says that sticks with you, it's how they say it, the energy behind their words, the timing, the tone, it all lands in your nervous system. That's the part most people ignore in communication. We're so focused on getting our message across that we forget the power is actually in the delivery. If you want to make a man addicted to your presence, start mastering how you speak, not just what you speak. Because when you learn how to use your tone, your timing, and even your silence strategically, you stop being just another voice in his world. You become a frequency he can't get out of his head. Here's the thing. Men respond much more to energy than most women realize. You can say something kind, but if your tone is cold, he won't hear your words, he'll feel your distance. And you can say something critical, but if your tone is soft and grounded, he might actually open up. It's not manipulation, it's emotional intelligence. When you slow down your speech, when you let your words land, when you use pauses instead of piling on, suddenly what you say starts to matter more, because now he's listening not just with his ears, but with his body. He's feeling you. And when a man starts feeling you on that level, you're no longer just communicating, you're connecting. And timing is everything. You can have the most important thing to say, but if you bring it up when he's stressed, distracted, or emotionally unavailable, it won't land. Instead of connection, you'll create conflict. That's why learning to read the room, learning to sense his state before speaking is a game changer. If you wait until he's calm, open, relaxed, now you're speaking into a space that can actually receive you. That's when your words penetrate deeper. That's when they stay with him. And that's when you start becoming that woman he thinks about when he's alone, the one whose words echo in his mind long after the conversation ends. And silence, don't underestimate silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. A pause after a strong statement, a breath instead of a reaction. That space can create more impact than 10 perfectly crafted sentences. Because in that space, he feels your self-control, your poise, your presence. It tells him you're not reactive, you're intentional. And that's rare. That's magnetic. So when you combine all of this, tone, timing, and silence, you create a rhythm in the way you speak that draws him in, calms his nervous system, and makes him crave more. You become the person who doesn't just talk at him, but speaks into him. You shift from being a source of noise to a source of grounding. And that's when he becomes addicted, not to your words, but to the way you make him feel when you speak. One of the deepest needs every man has, but rarely talks about, is the need to be understood. Not just heard, not just tolerated, truly understood. And when a woman can reflect a man's desires, his values, his vision back to him without judgment or correction, that's when something profound happens. That's when he starts to feel seen in a way that very few people ever make him feel. And that's when the addiction begins, not to anything external, but to the experience of being known. See, most men go through life keeping parts of themselves hidden, not because they want to, but because the world has taught them it's safer that way. Safer to stay quiet about what they really want. Safer to keep their struggles private. Safer to bury their dreams behind responsibility. But if you want to unlock the kind of bond that makes him emotionally invested, you've got to show him it's safe to let you in. And you do that by reflecting his vision, not trying to rewrite it, not trying to reshape it, just reflecting it, honoring it, and holding space for it. You want to be unforgettable to a man? Start paying attention to the little things he says about what drives him, what excites him, what he's building toward, and then bring it back to him through your words, your support, your belief. Say things like, I can tell how much that matters to you, or that goal really lights you up, doesn't it? It's not about flattery, it's about alignment. It's about showing him that you're not just present, you're paying attention, that your presence supports his purpose. Because when a man feels like you actually get what he's working for, when he sees that you're not threatened by his ambition but inspired by it, he begins to connect your presence with momentum. And that's powerful. That's what every driven man is really looking for, whether he knows it or not. A woman who doesn't try to slow him down or make him smaller, but one who sees the direction he's headed and walks with him, not behind him, not in front of him, but with him. But this doesn't mean you have to fake interest in everything he does. It means you tune into what matters to him. You speak life into it. You remind him of who he is when he forgets. You reinforce the vision when it starts to blur. And in doing that, you become more than just a partner. You become a mirror to his best self. And when a man starts to see the best version of himself through you, that's a connection he never wants to lose. Because it's not just about love or attraction, it's about resonance. And when you create that kind of resonance where his dreams feel safer with you than with anyone else, you don't just have his attention. You have his loyalty. The moment a man senses that your happiness depends on him, something shifts. Not in a good way. It doesn't make him feel needed. It makes him feel pressured. And pressure is the exact opposite of what creates attraction. You want to know what really makes a man addicted to a woman? It's when he sees that she's already full, that her life is already rich, that she's already in motion. When he sees that your joy isn't waiting on him, but that being with him simply adds to it, that's when you become magnetic. There's nothing more powerful than a woman who brings her own energy into the room, her own purpose, her own passions, her own rhythm, because that kind of woman doesn't need to chase, convince, or beg. She doesn't need to ask where she stands or what she means to him, because she knows her own value. And when a man sees that you're already aligned with your purpose, already in love with your life, he doesn't feel burdened, he feels inspired. He sees you not as a responsibility, but as a revelation, something that makes him want to rise. You don't need to constantly prove your worth to a man. You just need to be in your worth. You show it in how you carry yourself, in how you light up from within, in how you hold your boundaries with love, not fear. That grounded energy, that certainty, it speaks louder than any words. It says, I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm looking for someone who can walk beside me as I continue becoming more of who I already am. And that kind of woman, she doesn't just capture attention, she commands devotion. It's easy to fall into the trap of overgiving, over-explaining, overextending, thinking that if you just show enough love, enough effort, enough flexibility, he'll finally choose you. But real connection doesn't grow from sacrifice, it grows from alignment, from two whole people choosing to come together because it feels expansive, not depleting. So if you want a man to be hooked on you, stop looking for ways to fit into his life and start building a life so vibrant that he wants to fit into yours. And don't underestimate how attractive it is to a man when he sees you in your element, laughing freely, chasing your goals, surrounded by people who energize you. That's when you become unforgettable. Not because you need him, but because you don't. So let's go back to something from Keith Candle when he was going to say a creative conference in Asia. The professor who didn't end up selling his business because he was burned out, not because he realizes that being chosen by you is a privilege, not a project. That being with you feels like a win, not an obligation. And when you live like that, when you own your life, your time, your energy, he won't just want to be around you, he'll feel pulled towards you again and again, not out of habit, but out of deep, undeniable desire